The beautiful Maldives. The Republic of Maldives is an archipelagic state in the Indian subcontinent of Asia, situated in the Indian Ocean. It lies southwest of Sri Lanka and India, about 750 kilometers, 470 miles, 400 nautical miles, from the Asian continent's mainland. Hi, everyone, welcome back. If you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing and give this video a like, it will help a lot. In today's video we are going to see and learn the beautiful Maldives. The chain of 26 atolls stretches from Ihavandhipalhu Atoll in the north to Adu Atoll in the south, across the equator, comprising a territory spanning roughly 90,000 square kilometers, 35,000 square miles, including the sea. Land area of all the islands comprises 298 square kilometers, 115 square miles. Maldives is one of the world's most geographically dispersed sovereign states as well as the smallest Asian country by land area and, with around 557,751 inhabitants, the second least populous country in Asia. Mali is the capital and the most populated city, traditionally called the King's Island, where the ancient royal dynasties ruled, for its central location. An atoll, sometimes known as a coral atoll, is a ring-shaped coral reef, including a coral rim that encircles a lagoon partially or completely. There may be coral islands or keys on the rim. An atoll is explained by the subsidence of a volcanic island around which a coral fringing reef has formed. Over geologic time, the volcanic island becomes extinct and eroded as it subsides completely beneath the surface of the ocean. As the volcanic island subsides, the coral fringing reef becomes a barrier reef that is detached from the island. Eventually, reef and the small coral islets on top of it are all that is left of the original island, and a lagoon has taken the place of the former volcano. The lagoon is not the former volcanic crater. For the atoll to persist, the coral reef must be maintained at the sea surface, with coral growth matching any relative change in sea level, subsidence of the island or rising oceans. The Maldives are formed by 20 natural atolls, along with a few islands and isolated reefs today, which form a pattern stretching from 7 degrees 10 north to 0 degrees 45 south. The largest of these atolls is Baduthalat Hunmati, while the atoll containing the most islands is Huvadu. Some atolls are in the form of a number of islands by time and in the form of isolated reefs, which could be classified as smaller atoll formations. All land above the surface in the Maldives is of coralline origin. The atolls of the Maldives form a quite regular chain and, especially in the northern and central atolls, an arrayed structure is apparent. There are broad and deep channels in between some atolls. The origin of the word atoll itself is in the language of the Maldives. Atoll, from Divhi, Athilhu, is now used in many languages worldwide. The Maldivian archipelago is located on the Chagos Laccadive Ridge, a vast submarine mountain range in the Indian Ocean. This also forms a terrestrial ecoregion, together with the Chagos Archipelago and Lakshadweep. With an average ground level elevation of 1.5 meters, 4 feet 11 in, above sea level, and a highest natural point of only 5.1 meters, 17 feet, it is the world's lowest lying country. In the 12th century, Islam reached the Maldivian archipelago, which was consolidated as a sultanate, developing strong commercial and cultural ties with Asia and Africa. From the mid-16th century, the region came under the increasing influence of European colonial powers, with the Maldives becoming a British protectorate in 1887. Independence from the United Kingdom came in 1965, and a presidential republic was established in 1968 with an elected People's Majlis. The ensuing decades have seen political instability, efforts at democratic reform, and environmental challenges posed by climate change. According to legends, the first settlers of Maldives were people known as Davis. The first kingdom of the Maldives was known as Devamari. In the 3rd century BC, during the visit of emissaries sent by Emperor Asoka, Maldives was known as Deva Mahal. During circa 1100 to 1166, Maldives was also referred to as Divakuta, and the Laccadive archipelago, which was a part of Maldives, was then referred to as Divakanbar by the scholar and polymath Al-Biruni, 973-1048. The name Maldives may also derive from Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a classical language of South Asia belonging to the Indo-Aryan branch of the Indo-European languages. It arose in South Asia after its predecessor languages had diffused there from the northwest in the Late Bronze Age. Sanskrit is the sacred language of Hinduism, the language of classical Hindu philosophy, and of historical texts of Buddhism and Jainism. It was a link language in ancient and medieval South Asia, and upon transmission of Hindu and Buddhist culture to Southeast Asia, East Asia and Central Asia in the early medieval era, it became a language of religion and high culture, and of the political elites in some of these regions. Ancient history and settlement. The Maldives is well over 2,500 years old according to legends of the southern atolls. Early settlers in the Maldives were probably Gujaratis, who reached and settled Sri Lanka about 500 BC. Evidence of cultural influence from North India can be deduced from the methods of boat building and silver punch-marked coins. According to the book Kitab Fayat Midhu al-Qadim, written in the 17th century in Arabic by Allama Ahmed Shihabuddin, Allama Shihab Alban, of Medu and Adu Atoll, the first settlers of the Maldives were people known as Davis. They came from the Kalabanga in India. The time of their arrival is unknown, but it was before Emperor Asoka's kingdom in 269 to 232 BC. Shihabuddin's story tallies remarkably well with the recorded history of South Asia and that of the copperplate document of Maldives known as Loma Vanu. Ashoka, also known as Ashoka the Great, Pyodases in ancient Greece, was an Indian emperor of the Maurya dynasty, son of Bindusara Maurya, who ruled almost all of the Indian subcontinent from circa 268 to 232 BCE. Ashoka promoted the spread of Buddhism across ancient Asia. Considered by many to be one of India's greatest emperors, Ashoka expanded Chandragupta's empire to reign over a realm stretching from present-day Afghanistan in the west to Bangladesh in the east. The first Maldivians did not leave any archaeological artifacts. Their buildings were probably built of wood, palm fronds, and other perishable materials, which would have quickly decayed in the salt and wind of the tropical climate. Moreover, chiefs or headmen did not reside in elaborate stone palaces, nor did their religion require the construction of large temples or compounds. The importance of the Arabs as traders in the Indian Ocean by the 12th century may partly explain why the last Buddhist king of Maldives, Dovimi, converted to Islam in the year 1153, or 1193. Adopting the Muslim title of Sultan Muhammad al-Adil, he initiated a series of 6 Islamic dynasties that lasted until 1932, when the Sultanate became elective. The formal title of the Sultan up to 1965 was Sultan of Land and Sea, Lord of the 12,000 Islands, and Sultan of the Maldives, which came with the style Highness. In 1558 the Portuguese established a small garrison with a viador or overseer of a factory, trading post, in the Maldives, which they administered from their main colony in Goa. Their attempts to impose Christianity provoked a local revolt led by Muhammad Thakur Fa'anu al-Azam and his 2 brothers, that 15 years later drove the Portuguese out of Maldives. This event is now commemorated as National Day. In the mid-17th century, the Dutch, who had replaced the Portuguese as the dominant power in Ceylon, established hegemony over Maldivian affairs without involving themselves directly in local matters, which were governed according to centuries-old Islamic customs. The British expelled the Dutch from Ceylon in 1796 and included Maldives as a British protectorate. The status of Maldives as a British protectorate was officially recorded in an 1887 agreement in which the Sultan accepted British influence over Maldivian external relations and defence while retaining home rule, which continued to be regulated by Muslim traditional institutions in exchange for an annual tribute. The status of the islands was akin to other British protectorates in the Indian Ocean region, including Zanzibar and the Trucial States. In the British period, the Sultan's powers were taken over by the Chief Minister, much to the chagrin of the British Governor-General, who continued to deal with the ineffectual Sultan. Consequently, Britain encouraged the development of a constitutional monarchy, and the first constitution was proclaimed in 1932. However, the new arrangements favoured neither the aging Sultan nor the wily Chief Minister, but rather a young crop of British-educated reformists. As a result, angry mobs were instigated against the constitution, which was publicly torn up. Maldives remained a British Crown protectorate until 1953, when the Sultanate was suspended and the First Republic was declared under the short-lived presidency of Muhammad Amin Dede. While serving as Prime Minister during the 1940s, Dede nationalised the fish export industry. As President, he is remembered as a reformer of the education system and a promoter of women's rights. Conservatives in Mali eventually ousted his government, and during a riot over food shortages, Dede was beaten by a mob and died on a nearby island. Beginning in the 1950s, the political history in Maldives was largely influenced by the British military presence in the islands. In 1954, the restoration of the Sultanate perpetuated the rule of the past. 2 years later, the United Kingdom obtained permission to re-establish its wartime RAF Ghan airfield in the southernmost Tudu Atoll, employing hundreds of locals. In 1957, however, the new Prime Minister, Ibrahim Nasir, called for a review of the agreement. Nasir was challenged in 1959 by a local secessionist movement in the 3 southernmost atolls that benefited economically from the British presence on Ghan. This group cut ties with the Maldives government and formed an independent state, the United Suvadive Republic, with Abdullah Afif as president and Hithadu as capital. 1 year later, the Suvadive Republic was scrapped after Nasir sent gunboats from Mali with government police, and Abdullah Afif went into exile. Meanwhile, in 1960, the Maldives had allowed the United Kingdom to continue to use both the Ghan and the Hithadu facilities for a 30-year period, with the payment of £750,000 over the period of 1960 to 1965 for the purpose of Maldives' economic development. The base was closed in 1976 as part of the larger British withdrawal of permanently stationed forces east of Suez. Independence and Republic. When the British became increasingly unable to continue their colonial hold on Asia and were losing their colonies to the indigenous populations who wanted freedom, on July 26, 1965, an agreement was signed on behalf of the Sultan by Ibrahim Nasir Ranabandiri Khalajafan, Prime Minister, and on behalf of the British government by Sir Michael Walker, British Ambassador-designate to the Maldive Islands, which formally ended the British authority on the defence and external affairs of the Maldives.